with Braun Strowman saying fans caused him to hate himself, and WWE having big plans for Lesnar versus Reigns. This is Wrestling Up. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report for October 8th. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Up and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. With Control Your Narrative, Braun Strowman, now going by Titan, touched on his struggles with internet fans when he signed with WWE. When I started hating myself and realizing I wasn't happy is when I knew I needed to leave WWE, and a lot of it boils down to just what I mentioned earlier about having to be on all the time, and the criticism from the fans. It's not even the fans aren't the ones. It's the dorks on the internet that opinion and couch cushion book shows and do all this stuff and just non-stop talk smack about what we're trying to do. I didn't see any of you guys getting cast and thrown into the deep end of the pool, you know? In the middle of a pandemic when the whole world is in a frenzy not knowing what was going on. I jumped on a jet and flew back. I had no idea they were putting me over to beat Goldberg. I came back because people needed an outlet. People need a way to check out from reality. And by me going to work and me being selfless and putting my health, my risk on the line while not knowing what was going on, I knew in the back of my mind, yeah, I'm not going to make everybody happy. You can't make everybody happy, but there are people sitting at home that are scared. They don't know what's going on in the world, and if I can take them out of that reality for 3 minutes while I'm out there wrestling, then I did my job. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. People watch wrestling to get caught up in it and forget about the BS that's going on in their lives. And having to listen and hear and read all this crap about this sucks and this and blah blah blah. He would go on to note how difficult it was to memorize a script in a short amount of time and how the swamp fight with Bray Wyatt was exhausting in terms of creating that cinematic match. Like, I would love to see any of you get handed a 1,500 word script on a piece of paper, get 15 minutes to 30 minutes to try to memorize it, then go out and do it on live TV in front of no one. You can hear your heartbeat standing out there, and it was just, that's when it got to the point where like, I don't know. And I know that's part of what comes along with all this stuff, but just the non-stop negativity that there is in the wrestling community, it's so toxic, and it made me hate going to work. It made me hate this stuff, and I know I shouldn't read this stuff. I know I shouldn't care, but I do, because I care about my work. I care about what and how I'm projected. I want to be the best at everything I do, and it's a fault at times, but it's like the fact of listening to these guys bury and just crap all over the match, the cinematic match with Bray Wyatt. They say it's the worst match of the year, the worst they had ever seen, this, and this. People don't have a clue what went into doing that. I worked for 28 hours straight trying to get this out to our fans, get a product out to try to get people to take their mind off what's going on in the world. I went to work the next day after filming it and wrestled on TV. I got home that night at like 12 o'clock at night and was taking a shower and collapsed in my house. I had to get an ambulance come get me from my house because I collapsed from dehydration. I went into full body cramps. This event led to Strowman hating himself and everything in his life, where the only place he found salvation was the gym. To have to sit there and just listen to people criticize and naysay, it made me hate everything. Not only did it make me hate having to go to work, it made me hate people in my life that cared about me. It made me hate myself, and it sent me to this really bad place, and the only way I could get away from it was the gym. That's one of the reasons I've worked so hard in the last year and a half on training, because it's one of the things I can control. So many things were out of my grasp, out of my fingertips. The gym is the only place I've ever found solace to do what I needed to do. Strowman would point out that he would love for his next opponent to be Bray Wyatt, as we'll have to see if this match comes together after Bray's WWE non-compete clause expires on the 29th. With Braun Strowman recently saying that every 3-letter company has given him an offer, Black Label Pro sent him one over Twitter as it reads, "A great addition to our janitorial staff." All jokes aside, Strowman is likely going to end up in Impact Wrestling, with him recently hinting at making an announcement regarding his future. When it comes to the recent big-name debuts in AEW, CM Punk told Sport 1 that it will take years to see how much it benefits the company. How much the change from Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson, and me really affects wrestling, you will only see it fully in many years. At least 5. When Scott Hall and Kevin Nash went to WCW, it was big. The formation of the New World Order with Hulk Hogan was huge. And if you look at the long-term effects, it burned out relatively quickly. 5 years later, WCW came to an end. So ask me in 5 years where AEW will be. As for the comparison, I never said Adam, Bryan, and I were bigger than the NWO. I said the change felt bigger for us than the changes back then. This is my opinion, others may disagree, that's cool too. In 5 years, you will be able to judge it correctly. Following his release from WWE in 2016, Alberto Del Rio was accused of kidnapping by his ex, an accusation she would later take back in her testimony. With Del Rio looking to resolve this legal matter, he apparently has his eyes set on a WWE comeback, as the Wrestling Observer noted. While I don't believe this at all, but Alberto El Patron is telling people that he's going to WWE when his legal situation regarding the alleged assault on his ex-girlfriend in San Antonio is cleared up. It would actually shock me if WWE would use him, not that anything is impossible and WWE could get away with it, while any other US company would be excoriated for it, but I don't think that's a direction that makes any sense for them at this point. Olympic gold medalist Gable Steveson not only was signed by WWE but was picked up by Raw during the most recent draft. While picking Steveson was surprising, the Observer would note that WWE has a WrestleMania role for the Olympian. It was known that the company wants to feature Steveson all year on the show before the idea is of him starting as a regular after the college wrestling season ends in March, with the idea of a WrestleMania debut. Given he is only 21 and coming off a huge feat at the Tokyo Olympics, it seems as if sky is the limit for this young star. After 3 decades in wrestling, The Undertaker decided to retire after his Boneyard match. Speaking to ET Online, he was asked about a potential return to the ring as he replied, "My days in the ring are done. It's not because I don't want to be in the ring, and that is where I spent most of my adult life. My whole life, really. More than half my life has been spent in the sports entertainment ring. So in my mind, I can still see everything. In my heart, you know I want to be out there, but it's at a point where my body just can't deliver, and I don't want to cheapen the legacy of that character. I'd hate for people to pay money to see me work and be disappointed." While he could be a part of WWE as a trainer or producer, it's safe to say we've seen the last of Undertaker's matches. After losing to Chris Jericho at Full Gear 2019, Cody Rhodes lost the right to challenge for the world title again. While he has kept that promise, he hinted at challenging for it anyway to Pop Culture. "I'm not going back on my word to challenge for the title. That stuff was real, it hurts. It is a large regret that ever happened, but it did happen and I can live with it. And I got to do that dance with Jericho and I will not go back on that stipulation, me personally. If Tony wanted to change things, he could. And again, you can never say never in wrestling." As WWE Champion, Big E has made it clear he wants to be his own man, not being a copycat of John Cena and Roman Reigns. He spoke to Renee Paquette about altering his presentation now that he is champion. "I suppose it has sunk in. For me, I don't want there to ever be a moment where I feel I had an I made it moment where like, alright, you've done it, now you're good, you can coast. Because that's when you stop growing. That's when you stop getting better. Nothing good comes from that. I don't necessarily feel the pressure, but I know there is an added responsibility. So for me, it's still just go out there and perform to the best of your ability. That's always been my perception, but I do think there are ways that I think I want to tweak my presentation. When you're the guy, it's a little bit different than when you're in a 3-man group working tag team matches." Big E is set to defend his title against Drew McIntyre at Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia with a win over the former champion, possibly setting up a match against Goldberg down the line. With Roman Reigns in the middle of a feud with the recently returned Brock Lesnar, Booker T took to his Hall of Fame podcast to note that either Lesnar or Walter should be the one to dethrone Reigns. "For me, I've been talking about this for a minute now. To beat Roman Reigns, you gotta really make that a moment. I always say with moments, you only get a chance to have it one time and it goes away pretty much as far as these kind of situations. Undertaker's streak being broken, stuff like that. For me, you look at Brock Lesnar. Could he be the guy? Of course. But for me, I'm looking to make somebody. I'm looking to make somebody in a big fashion, in a huge way. And there again, man, I look at that kid Walter, and I say he's a star. He's what wrestling is today." Reigns will be defending his title at Crown Jewel against Lesnar on the 21st, as it remains to be seen who comes out on top. Speaking of Reigns and Lesnar, Dave Meltzer noted that they are set to have more than one match, with WrestleMania apparently a part of these plans. From what we understand and what makes sense is this is not a one and done program. For one, unless Dwayne Johnson is wrestling Reigns at next year's Mania, this would appear to be the biggest possible Mania match. So the idea here is to build to a return, whether that means Lesnar wins to build a rematch or some disputed decision takes place. There is also Paul Heyman in play, as the storyline is written to tease that Heyman is a double agent, and you don't know who he will side with when all the chips are down. With Paul Heyman continuing to side with Roman Reigns, it will be interesting to see if he turns on the champion to go back to his former client Brock Lesnar. And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.